Good evening and welcome to this evening's STS-88 mission status briefing. Here to discuss the events of Endeavour's crew aboard the International Space Station. With us this evening we have Sally Davis, the International Space Station Flight Director, and joining her Randy Brinkley, ISS Program Manager for NASA. Also Bill Bastido, the Unity Launch Package Manager for NASA. And then from Boeing we have John Vollmer, the Unity Launch Package Manager, and also from Boeing, Virginia Barnes, the Zarya Launch Package Manager. We'll have some statements from each of our briefers, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Sally?
Thank you. A couple of years ago, when we decided it would be prudent on this flight to go into the stations while we were there, we began working real hard, putting procedures together, making sure we could get through everything we needed to do to get there, and have spent a lot of time putting those procedures together, testing, checking them out, training. And when we executed them today, there wasn't anything in them to remind us of how symbolic the day was. But as we watched the crew go in, each hatch that was open, the feeling of excitement in the control center was elevated as every hatch was open. And I got to tell you, it was really a feeling of gratification. Besides having to focus on what they were doing, technically was not all that challenging with respect to other things we were doing on the flight, but certainly was a very meaningful moment for the people in the control center. As you saw on the TVs, the crew is in the Zarya and the Unity as we speak. They are about halfway done with the early comm system installation. They are in the process of finishing up the replacement of the PTOB, which is the current converter unit on the battery in the Zarya that was not working correctly. And we expect that to be finished shortly. And everything is going very well. The crew is a little bit behind the timeline, but there is still some time in there for them to finish up with what they're doing. We think the activities have gone very well today. And are real pleased with activities so far. Tomorrow we'll spend the day ingressing again and getting to whatever lower priority things we have going on in the node, like shear panel removal, so on like that, and then closing out and egressing all of the various compartments. And of course the next day we have the EVA-3 and we have the activities scheduled there. And I can't forget to mention that the orbiter is still very clean, doing very well. We have no issues that we're working at this time with the orbiter. Randy?
Well, I certainly share Sally's feelings and the feeling that that all of us had in Mission Control today, both here in Houston and also from the comm loops in Moscow as well. I think it was truly a historical moment for the International Space Station, where we had U.S. astronauts and Russian cosmonauts talking from the International Space Station, and they were communicating with the International Space Station team here in Houston and subsequently with the team in Moscow, and they were communicating from a functional International Space Station. So to me that was very gratifying and I believe a very historic moment for all of us who have worked so hard. Sally and Bob Castle and the flight team and the crew have done a tremendous job. We've had a tremendous flight so far, and it has met or exceeded all of our expectations. And tonight we have some more activities, but it's a major step forward for all of us in the International Space Station. And within the program, Bill Bastido and Ginger Barnes and John Vollmer, the launch package managers who have worked so hard over the last several years to get their hardware to the launch sites and to be able to deliver good hardware for the flight team. And it's a special moment for all of us.
As the launch package manager for Unity, we spent a lot of time putting together a team to support the flight control team. that's led by Bob and Sally. And we're very pleased that it's working so well, and that we're providing the necessary support and engineering data to the flight control team, as well as working together amongst ourselves. It's very gratifying, as Randy says, to be where we are today and looking at the crew inside Unity, inside Zarya, and having a good look at our hardware on orbit and seeing how it's performing. We spent some time last night after the second EVA inspecting the outside of the vehicle with the shuttle arm, and we have a very good idea of what the vehicle looks like and what shape it's in. We're very pleased with it. There are no significant anomalies that we've noticed yet, and we're very happy with the condition it's in. And we're even happier at the condition of the inside of Unity. I can just say that we were all very tickled seeing the crew inside when they first got in there and almost frolicking around inside our vehicle. It surely made everybody very happy. We also have spent a little time now with the crew reports that have come down and studying the video that's come down and looking at the condition of the inside, and we have found no anomalies on the inside. And so that makes us very proud as well. So in summary, I think this is another good day for us. We have a couple more we need to have a very successful mission. But we're pleased where we are, and I'll let John tell you about how the systems are functioning.
Thanks, Bill. The 2A team is obviously very happy with the performance of our hardware and software to date. All the systems are performing as expected or better. The anomalies that have come up, have all been addressed, all of them. The ones that are not addressed are minor in nature and will be addressed on future flights. The teamwork in the mission control room and in the supporting rooms has been excellent. I've really been proud to be a member of these teams and working through these problems in an expeditious fashion. The power system currently, all the margins are better than expected. The communications and tracking system, of course, we've just hooked up some of the major portions of that on the external, and we're hooking up some of the internal sections now, so we'll have an excellent communication system in place shortly. And as you've seen, we're getting excellent pictures of the interior of the modules, and real exciting to see the crew in there moving around and playing, so to speak. And I think Ginger's got a little bit on the FGB.
What an incredible journey that is continuing yet today. It's hard to believe that the FGB Zarya being launched aboard the Proton rocket only a few weeks ago, could be even matched in terms of emotions. What happened today and what has been happening over the last few weeks signifies not only a tremendous engineering but also an emotional journey. What I'd like to do is to highlight some of the specific tasks that have been accomplished in terms of the objectives of the vehicle, and then mention a few things about what it really means. As you know, the FGB hatch was open today, and that represented for us the first time on orbit that we have one contiguous volume of the FGB. Since the FGB has been on orbit, all systems have performed nominally. We've had very few surprises. At this time, we do have a battery component that's being replaced. They're in the middle of that procedure right now. It's interesting to note how that's being accomplished. We've worked procedures over the last 2 weeks once the anomaly was discovered. We've been working procedures around the world, around the clock, and with a tremendous team that we have compiled of both Russian and American specialists who are extremely professional and extremely dedicated. We've really merged two tremendous legacies in space flight with the Russian and American teams. Last night on EVA-2, the Nader Toru antenna was deployed, and we're looking at deploying the Zenith Toru antenna on EVA-3. Things are progressing very, very well. We have, with the EVA and with the ingress, we have now all of the systems between Unity and Zarya functioning, power, communications, air. Everything is working very well. We started this journey a few years ago, and it was in our dreams. It was intangible, it was paper, it was hard to imagine that we'd actually be able to touch things on orbit. And seeing rockets launch, seeing hardware joined, and seeing a crew whom we know, whom we've worked with for years, actually inside the vehicles. We argue over whose is bigger, but it's been a tremendous team. We've got specialists around the world. The Krikalev Space Center has done an outstanding job of delivering very high quality hardware. The things that we are replacing on orbit, I might add, we're not performing out of specification. In fact, most systems are meeting or exceeding their specification. We're very pleased with the performance of the FGB, with the ties that we've made internationally, and with the teams that we have formed on this tremendous effort. I believe that with this symbology today, joining the Unity and Zarya, we have set the standard for international relations on the International Space Station.
Houston Station for early comp.
Okay, we'll open it to questions here. As usual, if you'd give your name and affiliation.
Roger, Chris. I think.
Huntsville Times. I guess for Mr. Bastido, first of all, did you check out the anomaly where the latches weren't cycling right yesterday on the hatches on Unity?
Yes, yes. And let's see, we had an issue with the zenith and the port common berthing mechanisms when we went to check them out on, boy, it's a couple of days ago now, I've lost track. The first time we went to check them out, we were not able to communicate to a couple of the power bolt controllers. By retrying the test, we were able to successfully do that. We took some data. We're going to compare that to ground tests and a test setup we have in Huntsville, Alabama, to get to the bottom of what this problem is. I don't think it's certainly not mission threatening for any of the downstream missions. We just like to understand why we had that communications problem. But we have successfully checked out all the radial common berthing mechanisms. We put in a plan to check the forward as well.
I'm not sure who for. They're sort of floating around working in there now. Are they comfortable with that? I kind of wonder if they're not little work stands they can set up. You know, some of the early concepts had them having little foot stands they can lock themselves into. Is this sort of how they would normally conduct operations?
That is normally how they would, and in fact, that is part of what the activity will be when they get to it in the priority list. There are a number of foot restraints that will be installed in the node and in the FGB while they're in there.
Marcia.
Marcia Den AP. I think it was before the flight that the plan was to leave all the hatches open overnight. Is that still the case? And can they sleep wherever they want, or do they have to be on the shuttle overnight?
The plan is to leave the hatches open overnight. The crew will be sleeping in the shuttle. It's just the best place for them.
And is there any way to quantify the amount of supplies or cargo being transported into the ISS from Endeavour and back?
Let's see, I can help you with that. On this flight, that's not the primary objective. We're probably transporting maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 cubic feet of cargo, and I don't know that the mass that represents is significant. And a little bit of cargo back that we actually launched in Unity and in Zarya into the shuttle to bring down. So it's very little. Now, the next couple of flights, 2A.1 and 2A.2, the next couple of flights on the shuttle will be very significant cargo transfer flights.
Go ahead,
15 to 20 cubic feet. I can't visualize that. Can you help?
Let's see. Locker equivalents, mid-deck lockers, that's about 7 or 8 mid-deck locker equivalents.
Bill?
Bill Harwood, CBS, with two quick questions.
Could Sally maybe repeat for me or re-outline like you've done earlier what the comm system buys you and what that will allow you to do from Houston in terms of commanding or gaining insight into the station?
Certainly, I'll try. The early comm system allows us, through the tracking and data relay satellite, the same one we use for shuttle communication, to be able to command the node systems. Without it, we were going to have to rely on sending commands from Houston to Moscow and through their Russian ground stations. And we still have that capability, and we use it as a backup, just as they use the TDRS and early comm to command their systems as a backup for their control center.
I guess what I was looking for, what can you do from the Houston Mission Control Center after Endeavour departs? Can you change orientation, attitude control? Can you, what sorts of things will this let you do?
The node systems that we're commanding include a couple of power modules, so we can regulate the power. We can monitor and control the 2 MDMs that are on board, and we can manage the early comm system itself.
Okay, and I guess one for Bill, and this is just because I couldn't answer it when someone asked me the other day, and I figured you can. Why common berthing mechanism with 16 bolts and stuff versus the old Russian docking systems that are simple and seem to just work like dreams every time? This seems inherently more complicated, and I just wanted a comment or two on the philosophy behind it.
A couple of thoughts there. First, the common berthing mechanism was designed for a much larger diameter than the APAS mechanism, which we're using. We are using the APAS mechanism on both ends of the PMAs to mate not only to the ODS and the shuttle, but to Zarya on PMA-1. The common berthing mechanisms, I believe, have a 60-inch diameter, which allows us to transfer full racks and support our logistics. The complexity of the mechanism, I think it's complex because of the redundancy we require to make sure it works. It is, when you look at it, it looks unwieldy, but I think we've worked at it now that where we know what we have. The communications problem, I think, will overcome real quickly.
Well, Bill, just to add to that, downstream of the value will probably be even more significant when we're able to transfer research in a whole rack, to be able to move racks in and out, which you can't do on the Mir and in the Russian segment.
That's about a 31-inch diameter hatch. The APAS hatch, and we're talking 60 or so inches.
And APAS just you can't scale it up for that.
I'm not sure that we've ever looked into that.
Paul?
Paul Hoverston, USA Today, with a question, I guess, for Sally. Is there anything that the crew needs to do to, power down anything before they go back to the shuttle to sleep? Turn on night lights or something like that. Is there anything like that? I've got a follow-up.
Although I'm not exactly sure what's in the checklist, they will probably turn the lights off, and anything they don't power off that we want to reconfigure, we can do from the ground.
Okay, and also I was wondering if anybody knows the reaction of any of the expedition crews. I think Chris Hadfield mentioned that they were all in the back row somewhere watching this. Were any of you up there with them, or could you speak to that in any way?
I was with Jim Voss today for about an hour. He was very interested in how the station looked inside, and he was looking forward to getting up to the space station.
Mark?
Thanks, Mark, and Chronicle. What's sort of the last or final milestone that you need to accomplish before the shuttle crew can close out the 2 modules tomorrow for their departure?
I don't know that there's any particular milestone. We would like to get the PTAB replacement finished, and every indication is that that will be completed this evening. We'd like the early comm system to be finished being installed, and we're going to check it out overnight just to make sure everything's working the way we expected it to. And Bill can jump in here if I've forgotten anything. I think we're planning on working the highest priority things first, and everything else, if we don't get it done, can be accomplished on a later flight when those crews ingress. And then we'll begin the process of egress, which will take a couple of hours to equalize pressure and get pressure going the right direction on the hatches and so forth.
Yeah, let's see. We worked a long time crafting our priority list so that we could plan to do work that would support downstream flights. For example, there's lots of launch restraint bolts that were used for structural integrity for launch are no longer needed and hinder access to stowage locations or maintenance work sites, and we're removing those on this flight because we have the time to do that. And if we don't get to those, that's okay. That's just that's a get-ahead task. So I think we've the two major ones, as Sally said, are the repair of the power system and the early communication system.
Todd?
Todd Halverson of Florida Today, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, but somebody mentioned the outfitting that'll be done on the next shuttle mission, I believe in May. And I'm wondering if you can give us an idea of how much cargo and what type of cargo is going to be going up on that flight.
I don't know the exact volume, but it is critical spares. We've looked at not just mean time between failure, but worst case scenarios, and both on the Russian segment as well as the U.S. segment. And through that critical spares analysis, we're manifesting a number of components that we will leave on orbit to deal with a worst case scenario, and that will be a large aspect of the cargo that will be taken up on 2A.1.
And just a quick follow. I'm wondering, you know, you have these two beautiful pieces of hardware flying in orbit right now, and of course the next critical step is getting the service module there. I'm wondering if Randy can give us an idea of what your level of confidence is at this point that that module will be launched in July or August next year.
I have high confidence it'll be launched next summer. I think there's a good chance that they'll be able to meet the July launch date. I think the determining factor will be what kind of technical difficulties they run into with hardware-software integration. They're about halfway through their testing profile on the flight article itself and are still on track for a ship date to Baikonur in February. And again, I think whether it'll be July or perhaps just a few weeks later than that will be driven more by technical, how well things go with the software development and hardware-software integration testing than any other factor.
Carl Sabar, PBS. Bearing in mind that the crew are doing a lot of things for the first time that they're going to have to do over and over and over again as the station grows, how's the timeline been for those processes, and how smoothly have they gone, and do you feel the need to adjust any of your estimates for future missions as to how long things will take?
I think that in general the crew has been running ahead of schedule on almost every EVA, on the activities in the ingress. You saw in the video we did run into a little snag when there were more cables over the PTOB than we were expecting, so it took a while to get that all disconnected and loose so we could get the unit out of there. But to answer what I think you're asking is, we're making notice of the differences in what we were planning and what things actually take, and that's something we've always done when we've flown shuttle crews, so it will go into consideration for future timelining.
Okay, a couple of follow-ups here. Martin
Berkey with the Huntsville Times. For whoever, what level of fidelity did you go through with planning to change out the converter in the Zarya module? Did Sergei get to actually work on a mock-up there? Did he see how the cables were in front of it? And it he sounded like he was kind of surprised that there was the sensor attached, kind of glued down to the temperature sensor, glued down to the box. How well did he know what was there?
Sergei Krikalev has in fact performed this very same change-out procedure on the Mir, and it's my impression that he did more than one of them. So he did not perform any kind of practice on the ground before the flight because the failure was too close to their launch for there to be hardware for him to practice on. But again, he already did it on the Mir. With respect to the cables, that was new information when we opened that closeout panel, but I think we dealt with it very well.
Marcia.
Marcia at an EP for Sally probably. Does the crew actually turn off the light switches on their way out? And if they forget to do that, can you do it from the ground?
Yes. The switch, Bill's laughing. The switch configuration is not as straightforward as in your house, but we can do it from the ground or the crew can do it themselves.
But is the crew meant to, I mean, are they supposed to do this as they back out?
Yes, I believe that's in the procedures. I don't know for certain, but I'm sure it probably is in there.
And is there anything that if they forget to do, you can't undo from the ground? Or is there something so vital that they really, it's only up to them as they back out of all this?
I can't think of anything. Of course, we can't do anything about opening and closing hatches, but you haven't asked about that, and that's obvious. The crew will remember to do all that. With respect to the systems, I don't know of anything that would put us in a configuration that we couldn't either work around or reconfigure on the ground.
Bill?
Bill Irwin again, CBS. I guess for Randy maybe or anyone. Randy, did you talk to any of your Russian counterparts today? Was there ever a moment where you could savor the fact that these two modules are in fact there? You had a crew on board, alluding to what you said when you started, and also what you said about Jim Voss. It sounded very matter of fact. Well, he's ready to go, but wasn't there at least some backslapping or jumping up and down or something?
Yes, we had Colonel Kargapolov that was with us today, and when we had ingress into both Unity and Zarya, as well as Mr. Alexandrov from Energia, and they were both very excited and very congratulatory. So yes, there was a lot of excitement.
And one other really, really low-level question for me. I noticed Krikalev said the other night, Sally, about the fields on the PGSC, I guess, going red or something at some point. And then they power cycled it, and that went away. And I know there was a pressure thing this afternoon when they got in there that there was a little bit of talk about. Is the software okay? Is everything running fine? And this is just one of those things?
Yes, we rebooted that laptop, and the anomaly did not reoccur today. The alarms that we got today when we were equalizing the pressure between the FGB and the rest of the stack were expected because the total equalization pressure was below their lower limit. So in fact, we were actually using it as a cue that the equalization was going as expected.
Martin?
Martin Berkey. When they're at the other end up there at Zarya taking pictures, who's minding the store and the shuttle? I mean, what if something goes wrong? Do they have any way of knowing if everything's okay back in the shuttle?
Yes, the handheld mic you saw them carrying around actually gives them access to, they can hear the tones going off in the shuttle, and someone is designated, I believe it's probably the commander or the pilot, to go back and tend the store and the shuttle. And after all, that is what the ground is there for too, so we're watching it.
Okay, any other follow-ups here? We have no questions at the other NASA field centers, so we'll conclude this press conference and shortly resume mission coverage. Thank you very much.